Well, welcome back to the Alchemical Life podcast. This is your host, Abigail Crow speaking. I am a strength coach for endurance athletes, hybrid athletes, just regular old people too. And I'm an endurance athlete myself, and I like to help runners get faster, stronger forever. And today I'm going to be talking about how to dictate whether or not you've got yourself a good coach, how to be able to search and find a good coach, because there are a lot of people that want a in-person trainer, or they want an online coach, or they want a program, but they want to know that it's coming from a good source. And so how, Abigail, do I know that this person is legit? Well, I am a coach, so I guess take all this with a grain of salt. But today I'm not here to sell you on me, other than if you do click down in the link below, you can figure out a quiz to a program that might be right for you. And all of my links are down there as well. Like and subscribe. But I'm not here really, truly to advertise necessarily coaching for me. I'm here to help you find the best coach for you, because this is one thing that I know for certain. Not every coach is going to be suitable for you. And a good coach actually knows when to say, yeah, this is outside of my realm of authority, and I'm going to refer you to somebody else. Like, for example, I would never be somebody that in good faith could take on a client who wants to do Olympic weightlifting competitively, or wants to do bodybuilding competitively, or even wants to do something like strongman or CrossFit competitively. That's just outside of my area of expertise. That's not necessarily what I help train in and coach people in. So because of that, I would say, no, not for me. Let me refer you somewhere else. And so I want to go through generalized qualifications for like what makes a good coach, and then also what makes a good coach for what you're looking for. So what makes an overall good coach? Oftentimes when a client looks for a coach, it's because they are wanting to do things the right way, or because they've done things the wrong way, and now they're ready to invest in doing things the right way. So they've been hurt while training. I'm also looking down because I'm looking at notes. If you've listened to my podcast before, you know this. But anyways, so a lot of people have been hurt while training before, right? Whether it is the actual program design, whether it's the structure of it, the training frequency, the overall volume for the exercises selected, the intensity that is trying to be driven out of the program for however long, whatever period of time, whatever it might be, you are hurt while you're training, or you're just not getting the results you want out of it. And you're like, maybe I'm doing more than I need to. Am I doing too little than I need to? I don't know what's going on. Somebody help me. Well, you want a coach that has general knowledge on those things. You want a coach that is knowledgeable and has a good grasp on overall principles and fundamental principles of training, whether that be program design, volume, intensity, frequency, exercise selection, that kind of thing. To figure this out, there are some questions that you can ask, but really, more importantly, I would just look at their general experience and then the way that they talk to you about the questions that you have, or the history that you're presenting with. What is the coach's training experience? You're going to want a coach that has a general like legal ability to train. So some kind of general certification, whether it be an NASM, an ACSM. I'm trying to think. A CSCS, actually a better certification, but that would be post degree. I would say NASM and ACSM are probably the most common two general certification courses that you can get to just legally train somebody. So if they don't have any of those, that's a huge red flag. They need that legally to train. And then also seeing what kind of CEUs they're continuing to get re-upped on. So they need to do continuing education. If they're not doing this, then one, their NASM actually will not hold any credibility anymore. Their legal ability to train you will now be gone. But then two, also, they're not somebody that's continuing to educate themselves, who's wanting to learn. And so that's a big red flag. So I would ask them what their certification is, what their background is. You don't have to be like, what are your certs? You can be, kind of nice and sneaky about it if you want. Just like, hey, so like, I was wondering what your background is, what kind of certifications you're interested in getting that you've gotten already. Having a degree helps. I have a degree in exercise physiology, but more importantly, I'd say the certifications that they're getting and the desire to get more certifications is big. Now, if you ever see somebody with shout out a Prescript certification, they are probably a pretty dang good coach. And if they're not the best coach, then they're working to become the best coach, because the Prescript certifications are a more niche certification. They're also an extremely expensive certification, and they're very in-depth. They're hard. They're tough certifications. I am Prescript level 1, 2, and 3 certified. I had an incredible opportunity by Jordan Shallow to be put in the level 1 course and put in the level 3 course. And so I'm just eternally grateful to the team, and they're a great group of people. This is not like an ad or anything like that. Just if they have any kind of Prescript certification, they are going to be a solid overall coach. Now, getting into the niche and like, is this a good coach for you, right? This goes later into things. But the next thing I would look at too is, besides their certifications, is, are they interested in getting more certifications? What are their areas of interest in studying? So for me, for example, I'm currently reading Steve Magnus's book on endurance training. I am also really interested in David Gray rehab and his platform. So I'm looking at videos on there all the time. That's kind of my like constant continuing education when I'm not getting a certification. Those are things that I really like to look into, because those areas tend to reflect positively on my ability to coach runners and endurance athletes in general, and then also transition really well into the hybrid space, which is, again, predominantly the clients that I coach. The Prescript certification set me up really well to train generally all populations, just generally well. The questions that I would then ask to, or the second thing that I would look at is, how do they handle your health history? So when you're giving your health history, which big red flag is if they don't ask for any health history. Hey, what's your background? Any injuries? What was your sports? What is your training like? Do you have any previous blood work that I can look at? Do you have, like, if they're not asking any relation to like who you are as a person and who's in front of them, if they're not asking about you and your training and your goals and your like, then that's just an immediate no. They should be taking all these things. I have extensive intake forms that I have my clients go through before I even hop on a call with them, because I want to be able to have all that information downloaded into my brain before I hop on a call with a potential online or in-person client, so that one, I can make the best use of our time, but also two, so that I can have that history going into the call so I can best help them. A proper history needs to be taken by a coach. So if your coach isn't asking you, probably not a good coach. And the things that they should be looking into are, what is your previous sport background? What is your previous training background? What is your injury background or injury history? Do you have any current injuries that are bothering you? Putting you through an overall movement screening and movement assessment, or a general one, just to get an idea of how you're moving. They should be asking about your goals. What do you want to do? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you have any exercises that you love, that you dislike? Things that are comfortable or uncomfortable for you to do in the gym, around the gym. Those are all things that I'd be asking about. Nutrition. How is the nutrition? What are your environmental factors? Do you have kids? Are you in a relationship? Is this relationship new? Are you married? Are you dating? Working a really stressful job? Do you not work? Do you take care of kids? Are you a full-time caretaker? All of those things are things in which me as a coach needs to know about you to best guide you and coach you in the future, or to direct you to somebody who's going to be really well suited for you. So does your coach take a good health history, and is this history actually in depth, or is it just like, hey, any injuries, anything I need to know about? Then, what is their overall level of experience? Now, this is more than just understanding what their certifications are, because you can have a lot of certifications and not a lot of experience. Of course, every trainer is going to start off not having a lot of experience. So when I was new to training, obviously I didn't have a lot of experience, but I did have a lot of hustle. I did have a lot of grit, and I was already studying, and I was trying to learn everything that I could about training. And so there is something to say for a coach who's just got like this effort to them, where it's like, I might not know the answer, but I will find out for you. Just because they don't have a lot of experience doesn't mean they're going to be a bad coach, and just because they do have a lot of experience doesn't mean they're a good coach. But a certain level of experience will help, and the experience should be also an experience with the thing that you're pursuing. So if your coach is going out and they have a lot of experience with elderly populations, then they might be great for you, if you're looking for somebody to help you as you're entering into retirement, and you want to be able to move well and have a good quality of life for as long as possible. Might not be the best trainer to refer somebody to if they're a football player in their off season. You know what I'm saying? So what is their experience and what is their experience with what you're trying to accomplish? I work predominantly with endurance athletes. I work with also general population athletes and hybrid athletes. But if a bodybuilder came to me and said that they wanted to get coached, which I've had people do that, I'd say, I don't recommend you train with me. I recommend you go to this other person because I don't have a lot of experience. I don't have any experience putting somebody through a bodybuilding prep. And I don't want to. That's just not what I want to take the time to do, because all of my extra time and energy is going to go to learning more about the areas that I predominantly coach in. But also, what is their experience level generally speaking? So I often tell people, look for a coach who's got a pretty well-rounded background, somebody who's worked with general population clients, somebody who's worked with elderly clients, somebody that's had experience working with athletic populations, somebody that's had experience working with, very busy moms, very career heavy moms and dads, things like, just work with a variety of people and in a variety of different ways, and also had enough time under their belt to learn from these experiences. So I've coached for, I believe, 6 years now, which isn't necessarily a huge time in terms of experience working with clientele. I know coaches who've been coaching for 20 years now, but I've worked with a large breadth of clients. So I've worked with anybody from a 85-year-old retiree to a guy who's currently in the NFL now. And I've worked with 9-year-olds. I've worked with everybody. And that helped me a lot, gaining experience in that area. Because I could take principles and apply them across different populations and understand which principles kind of carry throughout all populations. And then I also was able to take certain things that I needed to learn, that apply and really only work for certain individuals, or certain archetypes of certain individuals. And that made me a better coach all around, because even though I'm not going to specialize in this one thing, I'm not going to specialize in elderly populations. That's not my thing. I know how to train an elderly person, and I know how to do it pretty dang well, because I've been able to take and apply certain skill sets and certain experiences across different people. Ultimately, though, if you have a trainer and let's say you are an endurance runner and you have a coach that works predominantly with endurance runners, that's a pretty good sign. You want somebody who's going to have a lot of experience in the goals that you're trying to reach. Then I would look at, what is their overall reputation amongst your peers? So when are you getting referred to this coach by somebody who's had a successful experience with this coach? Are you hearing good things from other running athletes or endurance athletes? Are you hearing bad things? Are you hearing anything? Do they not have any experience in this realm? So reputation is pretty big. Most of my clients are referrals of some sort, and a lot of people, when they're going to a coach, it's a big investment. And so most people are going to have done some homework, and usually the biggest form of homework is, do other people find that this coach has given them a good experience in some capacity, whether it be moving pain-free or improved mobility or faster recovery times or greater strength, or whatever it is that you're trying to look for whatever your goal is. Does this coach have positive feedback from other people in this area? And if they do not, then I would consider looking into another coach. If they do, I would not let that be your end all be all, but the power of referral and the power of a positive reputation is unmatched. I think that the basis of my business and why it's successful is because I get referrals from people and I have such good feedback from people. That's the biggest thing. So if a coach does not have a good, strong referral system, or they do not have a good, strong reputation in the area that they're coaching, then they might not be the coach for you. And they might be a cheaper coach, but again, you get what you pay for. I really do believe that coaching is an investment. It's not cheap. And I totally understand why people, either don't have a coach or can't hire a coach. But even if you're just purchasing a program from a coach, don't go for the cheapest program. Go for the most quality program that you can get, and that's still within budget, because coaches that are good at what they do, they have invested years of their life dedicating to be able to write a program that they can then sell. A lot of people see it and they're like, oh, it's just an 8-week program. It's whatever. It's like, no, that's some coaches, 10 to 20 years potentially of experience behind this program that they've now put into this thing that you can purchase. It looks simple because it's often so well done and so well thought out that the client sees it in its perfected form, and not all of the drafts and all of the years of learning that goes into it. So just keep that in mind whenever you're going into and purchasing a program. You're not just buying a program, you're buying a person's knowledge as well and their reputation. The last thing that I would look for is, do they have experience in the sport that you're competing in? Now, this is not an end all be all. I know plenty of coaches that are extremely good at coaching certain athletes that have had no history in competing in the sport that they are coaching in, because you don't always need to. You don't always need to have personal experience. You do need to have a lot of knowledge in the sport and a lot of background in coaching people in the sport and in, potentially watching it and studying it and that kind of thing, if you're going to specialize in coaching, being a strength coach for certain athletic populations or for a certain particular sport. But you don't have to have played the sport. However, it does help a lot, because with coaching, there's always a psychological component to coaching, and being able to have had experience in the sport and understand the psychology of the athlete helps you coach better. And so I would say, more than anything, it's, does the coach have experience in the sport you're competing with? And if they don't have experience there, have they at least competed in a sport before? And do they have a large breadth of knowledge about the sport that you are pursuing? So those two things. If they've competed in sport before and they study the heck out of the sport that they are now coaching athletes in, then that can still be a wonderful and beautiful combination. But if they don't have a lot of experience, they just started helping athletes in that sport, they don't have a lot of experience and knowledge in the sport in and of itself, they've never really been an actual athlete, like they haven't competed in athletic endeavors, then might not be the best option. Because even if the coach does have a decent amount of knowledge on training principles and biomechanics and things of that nature, they don't really have that personal experience in the psychology of the sport, and they might not have the knowledge in terms of understanding the actual volume and the amount of fatigue that's accumulating via the sport. And so those principles might get poorly misconstrued. They might still throw a little bit too much volume and a little bit too much intensity at the athlete, because they just don't quite understand like the impact that a game has on an athlete physiologically, that the impact that a race week or that a taper might have, or that when you're super deep into a race build, that they just don't know. They just don't quite understand it. They don't get it. So do they have experience in the sport that you're competing with and competing in? I don't know why I keep saying it with. Do they have experience in the sport that you are trying to compete in? And if not, have they been an athlete before? Do they have a deep knowledge on the sport now that they're coaching clients in? Those are the biggest things. I think the last thing is, do they have a good attitude? Are they somebody that shows up really wanting to help, wanting to learn in a positive space? Do they pay attention to, your concerns? Do they take your health history into consideration? Because there's all the things. You can have the best intake forms and all of this knowledge and whatnot, but if they're not actually looking at the athlete and looking at you and listening to you and then obviously applying those things, that's a totally different notion. That's just, they're not going to be a good coach, because they're really honestly not a great person. And ultimately, a good coach is you cannot be a good coach if you're not a good person. You just can't, because it's a personal experience. Online, buying a program, in person, it doesn't matter. A good coach requires being a good person, because it requires being able to listen to who's in front of them and pay attention and put effort forth toward that thing, toward that person, toward their pursuit, toward their goals. Being a coach requires a certain level of selflessness, and you got to be a good person to be a good coach. You got to sacrifice a lot of time, put a lot of free hours in to learning more and continuing education and things of that nature. You can have a lot of knowledge, but if you're not a good person, you're not a good coach. So see how they just treat you and others, and see how they listen to you when you're talking to them, when you're asking them questions. And that will be the biggest indicator of if they're going to be somebody that you want to work with long term. I think that's all. So if you are looking for a coach, if you're looking to hire an in-person or an online coach, or you're wanting to get just a program from somebody that you can trust, then use these tools that I've laid out before you to help you, to guide you, because there is nothing worse than investing a lot of money and time, really time more than anything, into somebody that is not right for you. So I don't want you to waste your time. I don't want you to waste your money. I want you to go into the right place, into the right space, and achieve a lot of success in what you're trying to pursue. It is hard trying to pursue something athletically, trying to, move better, trying to change your life, really, because that's what training is. And you want to do that with somebody that you can trust and that is going to dedicate their time and effort and energy toward you appropriately. So, in that pursuit, good luck. If you have any questions and you're trying to vet somebody and you just need a little bit of extra help, feel free to message me, comment below, DM me. My socials are also in the description below. So please reach out if you have any questions. And I will see you guys next week for another episode of the Alchemical Life podcast. Peace out, y'all.